Hey YA nerds, Reading Room here again with another episode of Reading Room. This week we're going to talk about The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzi. It actually came out this year on June 27th, 2017, and it is 513 pages. Look at that thick sucker! So yeah, I'm gonna talk about this book today. I actually finished reading it a while ago, and I've just kind of been sitting in my room, and I have to return to the library soon, so I figured I should probably do this like sooner rather than later. This is the Thanksgiving episode too, not that that means anything because I'm not decorating or whatever, but happy Turkey Day to everybody who celebrates, and gobble gobble, all that jazz. So here we go. For the plot, I'm just going to read the inside jacket. It's the same online, I'm pretty sure, since I do have it copied and pasted from Goodreads on another place, but so I'm just going to read it from here. Henry Montague was born and bred to be a gentleman, but he was never one to be tamed. The finest boarding schools in England and the constant disapproval of his father haven't been able to curb any of his roguish passions, not for gambling halls, late nights spent with a bottle of spirits, or waking up in the arms of women or men. But as Monty embarks on his grand tour of Europe, his quest for a life filled with pleasure and vice is in danger of coming to an end. Not only does his father expect him to take over the family estate upon his return, but Monty is also nursing an impossible crush on his best friend and traveling companion, Percy. Still, it isn't in Monty's nature to give up. Even with his younger sister Felicity in tow, he vows to make this year-long escapade one last hedonistic hurrah and flirt with Percy from Paris to Rome. But when one of Monty's reckless decisions turns their trip into a harrowing manhunt that spans across Europe, it calls into question everything he knows, including his relationship with the boy he adores. So obviously, that sounds really interesting. Totally up my alley. For the review, I have like a weird thing for LGBTQIA plus literature, and by weird thing, I mean obsession. Growing up, there were hardly any books about, queer people or, not a lot that had like truly great queer representation, at least not like in mainstream media, and not to like date myself, but I grew up in the 90s, so, even when I was a teenager, which was in the early 2000s, it was just kind of like starting to really become a thing. In fact, teen literature was just starting to become a thing when I became a teenager. So you guys can kind of see like where the obsession with teen literature came from and why I'm doing this channel on top of like anything that has to do with LGBTQIA literature. I'm sure you guys also recall like my review of Queer There and Everywhere a couple of months ago. I adored that book. I adore this book. With Gentleman's Guide, I actually became even more enthused than Queer There and Everywhere. I almost broke my no purchasing rule, especially like no purchasing hardcovers, just so I could read this book, but thankfully I got it from the library instead. I also feel extremely blessed that my book club decided to read this one with me, so I could focus on 2 YA books at once. It never happens. Usually my book club, God bless them, I love them, they want to read like a thriller or, some kind of mystery or what, I don't even know what the last couple of things we've read is. And because I'm crazy busy and I don't have a life outside of book club or working, sometimes it's hard for me to juggle 2 books at once. So I got to read this with them and it was great. Immediately from the opening chapters, I felt a really strong connection to Monty. He just barely gets along with his father and is expecting this world tour to like help alleviate some of the anxieties that he has with growing up. Totally get it. What millennial couldn't sympathize with that, seriously? On top of everything else with his family, Monty's also falling desperately hopelessly in love with his best friend. and it just causes more drama for the two boys to deal with. Add in a touch of historical data, and you have an incredibly interesting journey. Definitely a great read that I would recommend for anyone looking to expand their LGBTQIA+ library, or just anyone looking for the Jane Austen time period with a touch of some queer romance thrown in. And this was also another book I had a hard time putting down. There were plenty of nights where I was up until the wee hours of the morning, just reading chapter upon chapter. I mean, it probably didn't help that I had insomnia, but, you know, at least I had some great writing that helped me get through that. I also really enjoyed the author Mackenzi Lee admitting in the back of the book, she talks about, like, historical significance and stuff in the back, and queer culture. There it is right there. She talks about it. I think that was a really wonderful touch to put in the book, talking about the different areas that they explored, and also like how society as a whole kind of viewed queer people back then. So, truly wonderful book. Oh, there goes my cat. Highly recommend it for everybody. I might still go back and purchase it. I'm kind of debating it. I might wait for it to come out in softcover and do it. Sorry. With so many books to read, it's hard to spend that much money on books. But yeah, so if you enjoy anything like that, if you enjoyed Queer There and Everywhere, you will love this book too, because it kind of ties those two things together, LGBTQIA+ people plus history. So really cool. So for tropes, there's not a lot for this one. About 5, I would say. Again, I'm using a list that I've curated myself, going off of what other librarians have told me, spoke to me about, as well as like my own experience reading YA books and watching a ton of movies. So here we go with the tropes. We have strong/smart female protag, broken family units, youths in danger, only one friend in the world, and Romeo and Juliet, or in this case, Romeo and Romeo. For my rating, I'm gonna give this book a 10 out of 10. I would enjoy it immensely again. Who didn't see that rating coming? I feel like I rate all the books 10 out of 10. This one was really good though, so it definitely deserves a 10. And yeah, I mean, I could give it an 11 out of 10, but I feel like I've been giving that a lot lately too, so I will just stick to the technical max and say 10 out of 10. For my favorite part, hold on, I have the book marked in here. Backstory, I guess, to my favorite part. It's like dead set in the middle of the whole book. Monty, Felicity, and Percy get into some trouble, and their entire tour is kind of veers off the main course. So, I think it happens like right outside of Paris. Monty steals something that he's not supposed to steal, and he and his sister and Percy get attacked by bandits who try to steal it back, and they wind up trying to return this trinket to its rightful owner. So while they're visiting the people who own the trinket, they end up staying in these people's houses, one house, and Monty's having like a really hard time. So he, I guess, suffers from insomnia. Another reason Percy and I are the same person. And he tries to find a drink in this house. So, the house is eerier at night, which I hadn't thought possible. But poor lighting and long shadows are masters of sinister ambience. I think about going back into the study where we met Dante, until I remember all the dead things and cursed objects in there, and instead shuffle to the front parlor and settle in before the fire, on a leather sofa which is just short enough that I can't stretch out all the way, and just stiff enough that I can't get comfortable, and I'm just irritated enough to know I won't sleep. There's a decanter on the sideboard with a bottle collar proclaiming it cognac, but no glasses, so I take a swig straight out of the neck. I haven't had a drink in a while, but it's not quite as soothing as I want it to be. By the way, he's a lush. Anyway, we have a lot in common. There are footsteps in the hallway, then a moment later a shadow blots the rug. thought I heard you wandering about. I sit up as Felicity makes a very unladylike flop onto the sofa where my legs just were. I offer her the cognac and she shocks me by accepting it. Then, taking a delicate sip, her nose wrinkles. That's vile. It's not the least I've had, no. I don't think it's this particular vintage. It's an acquired taste. Why acquire a taste for something so horrid? Something flaps by the window, a black shape torn from the black sky, and Felicity and I both jump. Then we smile sheepishly at each other. This house is strange, I say. Yes, but we're here, aren't we? They've been kind to let us stay. We haven't any other options. She takes another tight-lipped sip of the cognac, pulls a spectacular face, then passes it back to me. Helena's very pretty. Yes, so? So? I thought you'd be slavering over that. Should I be? Honestly, Monty, I've never quite understood who's really got a hold on you. Do you want to know if I'm a bugger? She winces at the crass word, but then says, it seems a fair question, considering I've seen your hands all over Richard Peel and Theodosia Fitzroy. Oh, dear Theodosia, my girl, I collapse backwards onto the sofa cushions. I remain inconsolable over losing her. I do not want to talk about this, especially with my little sister. I came down here for the sole purpose of getting drunk enough to sleep and avoid venturing anywhere near the subject. But Felicity goes on, staring at me like she's waiting for an answer. I take an uncivilized swipe at my mouth with my sleeve, which would have earned me a cuff from Father had we been at home. Why does it matter who I run around with? Well, one is illegal, and a sin, and the other is also a sin if you aren't married to her. Are you going to give me a fornication without the intention of procreation is of the devil and a crime lecture? I believe I could recite it from memory by now. Monty, perhaps I'm trying to procreate with all these lads and I'm just very misinformed about the whole process. If only Eton hadn't thrown me out. You're avoiding the question. What was the question? Are you... Oh, yes. Am I a sodomite? Well, I've been with lads, so yes. She purses her lips, and I wish I hadn't been so forthright. If you'd stop, Father might not be so rough on you, you know. Oh my, thank you for that earth-shattering wisdom. Can't believe I didn't think of that myself. I'm simply suggesting don't bother. He might ease up. Well, I haven't much choice. Really? She crosses her arms. You haven't a choice in who you bed? No, I mean, I haven't much choice in who it is I want to bed. Of course you do. Sodomy's a vice, same as drinking or gambling. Not really. I mean, yes, I enjoy it, and I have certainly abstained from abstinence, but I'm also rather attracted to all the men I kiss, and the ladies as well. She laughs like I've made a joke. I don't. Sodomy has nothing to do with attraction. It's an act, a sin. Not for me. But humans are made to be attracted to the opposite sex, not the same one. That's how nature operates. Does that make me unnatural? When she doesn't reply, I say, have you ever fancied anyone? No, but I believe I understand the basic principles of it. I don't think you really can until it's happened to you. Have you? Have I what? Ever fancied someone? Oh, well, yes. Girls? Yes. Lads? Also yes. Percy? I had felt her winding up to that, but it still catches me on the chin. I don't say anything, which is answer enough, and she gives me a sideways glance. Don't look so surprised. Neither of you is very subtle. And I'll stop there, because if I keep going, I will not stop. As for the age range on this sucker, I'm going to say 15, 16, 17 plus, because of the time period and some sexual situations as well as cursing. I mean, the cursing is not that big of a deal, but the sexual situations are a little explicit. And, you know, unless you want to have the conversation with your kid about all that stuff and let them read it at 14, totally do it. But if you don't want to do that, 15, 16, 17 plus is perfect for this. I feel like I like plowed through this review even though I totally didn't. So I'm gonna leave you guys off with that, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Happy Turkey Day, gobble gobble, and take care, YA nerds.